So before voting for governor, Senate, Congress, or anything else for that matter, Illinoisans will have the chance to weigh in on a plan to guarantee workers the right to unionize and collectively bargain. The constitutional amendment would add a new section to the state's Bill of Rights, and it reads as follows. Employees shall have the fundamental right to organize and to bargain collectively through representatives of their own choosing for the purpose of negotiating wages, hours, and working conditions, and to protect their economic welfare and safety at work. No law shall be passed that interferes with, negates, or diminishes the right of employees to organize and bargain collectively over their wages, hours, and other terms and conditions of employment and workplace safety, including any law or ordinance that prohibits the execution or application of agreements between employers and labor organizations that represent employees requiring membership in an organization as a condition of employment. Now, to pass that complicated amendment, the amendment needs yes votes from 3/5 of people voting on the proposal, or just a majority of all voters. All voters. Union membership actually grew last year in Illinois for the first time in 4 years. The push to protect the right for collective bargaining comes 4 years after Republican Governor Bruce Rauner declared war on union efforts here, and his right-to-work laws spread to 27 states, including every Illinois border state except Missouri. The fight has brought millions of dollars in donation to both sides. Joe Bowen is with the Vote Yes for Workers' Rights campaign, joining me this morning to talk about why he thinks voters should approve the amendment. We'll do the other side later, but it's sounds complicated, Joe. Let's just explain it. Opponents say the amendment will give unions too much power and taxpayers get hit with the bill. Is that true?
I don't believe that's true at all. I think that this amendment puts power in the hands of workers who want to negotiate to have higher wages, better benefits, and safe working places. And the Workers' Rights Amendment has nothing to do with taxes. You just read it for your viewers, and I think it's very clear.
So this particular amendment would then apply to public and private entities, and there are those who say that, look, public is one thing, government employees, and on and on in public, but why impose obligations on private businesses? Private businesses should get to do their own thing.
Private businesses are allowed to do their own thing, and this doesn't place any specific requirements on them. It just protects their employees' ability to organize and negotiate and to collective bargaining. I think that.
Well, let me just stop it. You say it doesn't place any obligations on them, it just protects their workers. So what it sounds like is the owner of a company, for example, might not want a union, but the workers can take a vote and create a union.
Correct.
So is that not a burden on an employer?
I don't believe that it is. There are a lot of employers here in the United States, and especially here in Illinois, who understand the value of having union labor. And when you look at the benefits to their workers, it's pretty impressive. A union worker in Illinois makes 15% more than their non-union counterpart. They're more likely to have health insurance. They're more likely to own their own home. They contribute much more to our communities and our economy. And they also cost governments less because they're less likely to require public assistance programs.
And again, opponents would say that the new rules would increase property tax bills, gas tax bills, sales tax, income tax, because someone has to pay for these new bargained for benefits. Is that correct?
We don't have a crystal ball, so there's no way for anyone to predict what these negotiations are going to look like. And no, I do not believe that the Workers' Rights Amendment will raise taxes. It protects your rights in the workplace, keeps them safe from politicians that would want to take them away from you, and doesn't have anything to do with taxes.
Well, aside from, if the impact isn't there, if there are certain benefits negotiated for, how would they get paid for?
They'd be paid for by local communities, but it's important to keep in mind when we talk about your ability to negotiate, we're talking about sitting at the table with your employer, and both sides will be able to advocate for what they think is best for the company or for the workers.
So we're not the only state to pursue this. The provision actually goes further than those that do exist in New York, Missouri, Hawaii, which have similar constitutional provisions, but this one goes further. How so?
I actually don't believe that it goes further. I think opponents of the amendment would argue that the language is broad, but I think that it's very specific. We're making sure that you have the ability to negotiate for higher wages, better benefits, workplace safety. When we talk about working conditions and your economic well-being, we're talking about your ability to earn a good living and to get home safely to your family. I think that this is consistent with what most Illinoisans enjoy right now, but it'll extend those rights to folks who haven't had them.
And in some cases, I guess opponents would say, why do we even need this? Because Lincolnshire, the area of Lincolnshire, they tried to pass a right-to-work law, and that got knocked out essentially by the court. Pritzker has signed a bill that says local jurisdictions can't pass their own right-to-work laws. So why do we need this? Only the state can do it anyway.
In the opening to this segment, argument, you mentioned that in the recent history of this state, we've had politicians who have attacked unions and the rights that working folks have. And when you look at what's happening nationally at the Supreme Court and in this very corrosive political environment, rights are under attack every day. And we know there's always another attack coming against working people. That's why it's so important that we take this step and protect those rights for every Illinoisan for as long as we can.
How will this interplay with, the Supreme Court had the Janus case come down a couple of years ago, and this whole notion of, wait, I thought I don't have to join a union. I don't have to pay dues if I don't like political positions my union's taking. I shouldn't have to pay for that. How does all of that interplay here?
Unfortunately, the Janus decision was a Supreme Court decision, so if there are folks who would like to opt out of paying their union dues for the representation that they receive, they'll still be able to do that. However, if you look at private sector employees, passing the Workers' Rights Amendment will foreclose the possibility that the state could opt into a loophole that would take away their rights to collective bargaining and to negotiate for higher wages. And I think that that's a very good thing.
But that does mean that people can say, okay, I'm a part of this union, but I choose not to pay dues. That's just a problem for the union.
For public sector unions, if there
Yeah.
are folks who do not want to pay their dues, don't want to be in the union, they can opt out of it.
All right. The Illinois Chamber of Commerce President Todd Maish said that this shows that Illinois' priorities are essentially with unions and not job creators, and we have a real job creation need in the state. So will there be a negative impact on bringing jobs to Illinois if this passes?
No, I don't believe that that's true at all. I think the best thing that we can do to attract Illinois businesses is attract the best workers possible, and workers want to go where they get the best deal. If we can pass the Workers' Rights Amendment, we can help raise wages for more workers, protect their safety at work. I think that we're going to become even more attractive to businesses. And I also would like to think for a moment about who really does create jobs. I think that the working folks who go out and spend money in small businesses are really the job creators. And the more that we can do to put money in their pockets, the better it'll be for our economy.
All right, Joe Bowen, who with Vote Yes for Workers' Rights campaign. We've explained that a little bit. There, of course, is another side to it, and we want to share with you as well. Thank you for being with me. And coming up next, the other side of the debate over the Workers' Rights Amendment. So don't go anywhere.